What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video is going over GPP tournament plays for Week 9's main slate. If you guys are interested in my cash plays, I had that video go out yesterday. If you guys are interested in my full cash tournament and values, as well as FanDuel, we have that available on our website for subscribers. It's a very cheap package. You get bets, props, any fantasy questions, injury news, stuff like that, all available on there in our Discord. So check that out. So let's get into it with Josh Allen, right? So Josh Allen's a tournament play for me against Miami. Miami, a couple injuries defensively, but overall through the last few years, especially, granted earlier this season it didn't pan out. Josh Allen has pretty much dominated the Dolphins. The run game was really good for Buffalo in that, to where Josh Allen didn't need to be Josh Allen. But overall, throughout his career, and especially the last few years, he's just dominated Miami. So, granted, he is up there in price. It's pretty hard to pick which receiver to stack him with or tight end. But you could just solo him. But Josh Allen against Miami is definitely worth taking in tournaments. Jaden Daniels against the Giants now earlier this season wasn't the prettiest for him. I do like the Giants defense against Jaden Daniels, but his rushing upside is there, and the Giants secondary is very bad. So if there's a way Washington's offensive line does good blocking, there's a really good scenario. Daniels has a good game. Jordan Love, I'm still skeptical on this one because apparently he is expected to play. I think it's a good matchup for Jordan Love. I just don't know how he's playing, if we're being honest here. Kirk Cousins, I mentioned I think Kirk Cousins or Dak, you could say either one is a cash or tournament play on this. Really good, healthy game for both quarterbacks in that one, so I like both there. But Caleb Williams against Arizona, really good matchup for him. Obviously last week was very underperformed and is probably worst game of the season, and we saw him play the Texans earlier this season. Granted, you go and see the defenses he's faced. He's faced, a bad Indy defense, I'd say a bad Rams defense, bad Carolina defense, bad Jacksonville defense, bad Washington defense, and now gets a bad Arizona defense. And Caleb Williams has been putting up some good fantasy numbers in those. 3 out of the 5 games, over 20 fantasy points, and gets another good matchup here against Arizona. Bo Nix against Baltimore. Baltimore's still kind of banged up. It seems like Lamar is going to be good to go. Bo Nix's rushing upside has made him very, very good. I am worried about this one. There's been a few games for Bo Nix I've been worried about pretty much the whole season. But as of late, since we've seen him kind of develop better, he's been balling. But he is going to have to pass the ball against this Baltimore defense that gives up a lot of passing yards. Now, we've seen Bo Nix, like you could see some of these games, right? Get 6.9, 6.1, 7.5, 6.4 just on the ground alone. But he's getting there somewhat in passing as well. It's a good matchup for him. His upside is there, to have the 20-plus point performances. Baltimore's offense should be able to run all over Denver, should be. So I like Bo Nix as kind of, playing from behind. I think they're, 10-point dogs now at that. Geno Smith, 5,800. I don't think he's as much of a tournament play. I'm probably going to be lower on him since both DK and Noah Fant are out against the Rams. But you still have Tyler Lockett. You still have JSN. Bubbo's going to be the next guy. We saw really good stints with him the last year. I like AJ Barner. We'll talk about him soon. So, yeah, Geno Smith is playable there. Derek Carr I'm going to mention as well at 5,600. Going against Carolina's defense, which pretty much every quarterback has had some variation of success against. So, I will throw Derek Carr out there. And then I mentioned Gardner Minshew yesterday in the cash video, but I am going to throw Bryce Young at 4,400 out as well against the Saints with both Marshawn Lattimore and Kool-Aid McKinstry out, so I do like Bryce Young at the quarterback position this week. For running backs, Saquon Barkley against Jacksonville, I think is a good tournament play. Obviously, people are going to go to Kyren or Kamara for cheaper in cash, so that's why Barkley is not a cash play. But it's still an amazing matchup for him there. Jahmyr Gibbs against Green Bay. Green Bay is sort of improved against the running back, but overall they are very bad in the run defense. Jahmyr Gibbs, more versatile than David Montgomery. David Montgomery has had the touchdown upside, but we've seen games where Jahmyr Gibbs gets the touchdowns. It's just how they kind of go. But you look at Detroit's offense, and they are rolling. 42, 47, 31, and 52. Last week was kind of weird, but still, this team has been amazing the last 4 games. So I definitely want to get some type of Detroit running back there. James Cook against Miami. Miami's been kind of good against the pass, but teams just don't pass against them. Teams weren't taking risks against Miami because Tua was out, and they knew Miami really couldn't move the ball offensively without him. You go back and look at week 2, James Cook, 28 DraftKings points there. A 3 touchdown performance game for James Cook, so definitely want to get back to that in that game. I am going to mention Chuba Hubbard at 6,500. Jonathan Brooks, I believe, should be in. Even if he's not, it's better, right? But if he is, I still like Chuba Hubbard there, getting the work against the Saints. Saints have been bad against the run. I do believe Carolina should be able to move the ball against New Orleans. So I like Chuba Hubbard. Got touchdown upside there as well. DeAndre Swift was cash, so go check that out if you want that one. I will mention I had Devon Achane as a cash play. Raheem Mostert, yet again, a tournament play. I mentioned him last week. I did have Devon Achane in my lineup. Devon Achane had an amazing game. But then Raheem Mostert, 9 rushing attempts, 19 yards, 2 touchdowns. So the touchdown upside is definitely there for Raheem Mostert, especially with how Buffalo plays against the running backs. I did say Chase Brown. I think it actually came after, but Zach Moss is doubtful, so Chase Brown is a cash. Alexander Mattison, it looks, I think Zamir White is out, 4,400. Alexander Mattison, tournament play for me. I will say, yet again, Tyler Algier at 4,900 is a tournament play against Dallas, who's been very bad against the run, and Tyler Algier still continues to get volume in that offense. So he definitely has had some good games for the volume he gets. Only 1 touchdown on the year, right? Last year we kind of seen him get more red zone work, but Bijan's been pretty damn good this year, and they're using Bijan in the red zone, which they should. But there's still scenarios to where Tyler Algier has a good game. And then I kind of mentioned it, but going into the Titans practice yesterday, Tyjae Spears ruled out. Tony Pollard is a game time decision that did not practice. Julius Chestnut at 4,000, even if Tony Pollard is in, I still want to have even just a small part of ownership in Julius Chestnut. Julius Chestnut at 4,000 against New England. New England been bad against running backs, but getting a 4K running back is crazy. So moving on to wide receivers, Jamar Chase without T. Higgins has got to be a tournament play, right? AJ Brown against Jacksonville for a stack. Amon-Ra against Green Bay has an amazing matchup, and his price is pretty damn good. So definitely like that one there. I have Tyreek as a tournament play. I don't think it's really necessary in cash, but there is a scenario where Tyreek Hill has a good game against Buffalo. Really hasn't happened so far since he's joined Miami. We've had, I think, maybe 1 or 2 good games. but I don't think overall he's had success against Buffalo because Tua hasn't had success. Terry McLaurin, 7,100 against the Giants. We saw earlier this season Terry McLaurin kind of struggle against the Giants, right? 8 targets, but 22 yards for 6 receptions. We've seen a different connection with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin's been getting some good, consistent passes. Probably what we've been waiting for his entire career is Terry McLaurin having a quarterback that can get him good passes, right? We've seen to where a quarterback just throws it and Terry McLaurin makes a great play and then he's kind of left out of the offense again. But against the Giants, in a really good spot if Washington's offensive line can hold up. Devontae Smith, 6,800. If you can't afford A.J. Brown in your lineups, Devontae Smith has just as good of a matchup and is very, very good against man too. Like, A.J. Brown statistically is the best receiver versus man coverage, just yards per route run versus man. But Devontae Smith has really good numbers against man too. He's in that top 5, top 10% of wide receivers versus man. I will mention that Brian Thomas Jr. is healthy against Philly. I think he's a good play. DJ Moore against Arizona is going to be the wide receiver I want versus Arizona. Kind of seen him as of late not have that same connection, but he went through a really good part with Caleb Williams. I think this is a really good bounce back game for DJ Moore against Arizona. Jaden Reed against Detroit. His price is very, very intriguing. Like, compared to where we kind of got Jaden Reed too at 7,200, but rose from 6 to 65 to 7, and then last 2 games kind of been not utilized as much. Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft, Jacobs all been used. He's got a good matchup. He does against Detroit. Detroit runs a lot of man. His numbers versus man aren't good. JSN against the Rams, I will say is a tournament play for me just because of DK Metcalf being out. Got a good matchup against the Rams, so at 6,200, definitely think he's worth taking. If you're stacking Dallas and want to run back and can't afford Drake London for whatever reason, Darnell Mooney at 6K is definitely worth taking there as well. Khalil Shakir against Miami. Interested to see where Miami's corners go. If Jalen Ramsey moves to the slot, he's going to see Shakir, which means it opens up for Coleman and Cooper. If he's not, then Shakir has a really great matchup there. Wan'Dale Robinson, great matchup against Washington. Price is kind of where we want it to be, right? We saw him go above 6K. He's still getting the targets. We saw week 2 against Washington. Only 4 targets in that one. It was kind of the Malik Neighbors show, but since then, I mean, that has been the lowest targets, right? 5 against Pittsburgh, but 4 in that game. Seeing games where he gets 8+, so really good matchup for him. Romeo Doubs, if I'm targeting a Green Bay wide receiver and want to feel really good in tournaments, Romeo Doubs versus man coverage. His numbers are really good. He's on the field. Him and Dontayvion Wicks have the better numbers versus man than Reed. Watson's got some good numbers. Reed kind of has the lowest, so that's why I'm skeptical on Reed, but his price is what makes it kind of interesting. Calvin Ridley, same thing, really good matchup there for him as well, with no DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks on the IR. We've just seen the targets continuously go up for him, and he definitely delivered versus a man coverage team in Detroit last week. Tyler Lockett, same thing as JSN. Just the opportunity there without DK Metcalf. Xavier Legette is a tournament play for me as well. I have Jacoby Myers and Xavier Legette at 5,300. Jacoby Myers, if you're playing Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Myers is a really good stack. Like, you could stack cheap Minshew, Myers, and Brock Bowers and still have a really good lineup. Xavier Legette just has a really solid matchup against the Saints. Gets the red zone targets between him and Jalen Coker for my Carolina receivers. Darius Slayton, like, at 4,800. Last 3 out of 4 games, right? Last week against Pittsburgh, Obviously, Wandell didn't have as good of a game. Neighbors didn't have as good of a game. Darius Slayton did. So it seems like they're trying to get all three wide receivers utilized in that offense to try to create some consistency. But I think it's pretty much Malik Neighbors and Wandell this week for me. Continue to go down Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore. I think either one is playable this week against the Chargers. Chargers have a corner out, so either one of those guys I'm taking over Jerry Jeudy in this one, but I want to have exposure to both. I think there's a scenario to where Elijah Moore with 12 targets, 8 for 85, has another good game. Obviously, Cedric Tillman, 9 targets, 99 yards, 7 receptions, and 2 touchdowns, has a way better game than Elijah Moore. But I think in this one to where the Chargers are going to account for Cedric Tillman this time, right? I think defenses the last 2 weeks have not, just because you're focusing Jerry Jeudy, you're focusing David Njoku. Cedric Tillman went under the radar both games. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to have a bad game because I want exposure to him. But I think teams are going to start to realize the threat that Cedric Tillman can be. So, definitely looking at that one. Noah Brown against the Giants at 4K. This one, same thing. I like Terry McLaurin, his matchup. I like Noah Brown as well, and he's 4,000. Yossi Voss, 3,900 with T. Higgins out. Pulls an okay matchup against Vegas, but we've seen the middle of the field kind of open up. Last week, only 3 targets. I do like somebody else on Cincinnati a little bit, but I will mention Yossi Voss just being on the field, being in the slot, kind of know where he's at. Ray McLeod, like, if you want, a guy that flies under the radar for this matchup, Atlanta and Dallas, it's Ray McLeod. Sees the field quite a bit, still gets targets. Saw him have some type of success week 4 and 5 against division opponents. Dallas's defense really banged up, so I think there's a scenario to where he has a good game. I will mention Kayshon Boutte at 3,700 versus the Titans. I'm going to mention it right now. Jalen Coker, 3,600 against New Orleans. Just their secondary is very banged up. If you want to try to risk playing Parker Washington, if Jacksonville's wide receivers are all out, go for it. And then Bubbo here at 3,400 against the Rams. Moving on to tight ends. This is where we get creative, right? So you can go Bowers, Njoku, in cash. I like Evan Ingram with the injuries to Jacksonville's wide receivers. Granted, Philly's played tight end really, really well so far this season, but Evan Ingram is a target machine. And we saw it when he came back versus the Bears overseas. 10 targets, 102 yards. But I mean, for points he kind of puts up, it's some pretty good consistent points. Jake Ferguson in a really, really good spot against Atlanta. Dalton Kincaid in a really good spot against Miami. Kyle Pitts in a good spot against Dallas. Sam Laporta in a good spot against Green Bay. All of these tight ends in this range are playable. I even think Trey McBride is playable at 5,800, although his price is up there. You're starting to see Trey McBride get more targets in that offense. So, over the last 4 weeks, I mean, early on, like he was still getting targets, but over the last 4 weeks, over 10 DraftKings points a game. So it's kind of what you want, and has the explosive game against Miami. So he is definitely playable. Cole Kmet against Arizona, really good matchup for him as well. Definitely want to get exposure there. Same thing with going down to Taysom Hill at 3,800. Taysom Hill, obviously last week against the Chargers, kind of a rough matchup. Sam Rattler is the quarterback. We got Derek Carr back. We have Derek Carr back as the quarterback. Really good matchup for New Orleans Saints tight ends, which there's 2 others. The running is also really good. Taysom Hill, 3,800. I'm saying it now. I would expect 10 plus points out of Taysom Hill in this matchup. I'm putting that out there. Continuing to mention Kobe Parkinson having a good... I feel like I've said almost every week Kobe Parkinson has a good matchup. And he does have a good matchup. They just don't throw him the ball. It just happens. Calcaterra, I think we got his name right now. 3,400. Dallas Goedert obviously out. Pulls against a very bad pass defense. 3,400, some exposure there. Will Dissly, 3,100. I'm going to mention against Cleveland. They're dealing with 2 linebacker injuries, so I think that opens it up. Mike Gesicki, we've seen him have success without T. Higgins this season. And guess what? T. Higgins is still out. So, seen him have 8 and 9 targets in 2 games without T. Higgins. And at 3,100 against a defense that is bad against tight ends, Mike Gesicki is in play. Continuing to go down, there's a name down here that we're going to find, and it's AJ Barner. At 2,600, no Noah Fant, no DK Metcalf, playing a defense that is very, very, very bad, a bottom 5 defense against tight ends. The opportunity is there, right? If you need to punt, right, because of how many good, Kyren, Kamara, CD, Neighbors, if you're paying up for Hurts, you got to punt somewhere. You got to find opportunities to punt. AJ Barner is there. I think AJ Barner has the potential to have a 10-point game. And you're like, oh, it's just 10 points. But at 2,600, 10 points is ridiculously good. So that's kind of what you hope out of your defense if you're paying for that. So I will mention AJ Barner. I'm not going to go over defenses. You could put any defense, right? We've seen defenses have fluke games all the time. They get a pick 6, a fumble 6, a special teams play, block kicks, couple lucky sacks, the offense fumbles. Just take a defense. I don't ever like doing too much research into defenses because the silliest things can happen to make a defense good or bad. So, hope you guys did enjoy the video. Like I said, the cash video went out yesterday. I will be live tomorrow. I will be live. I promise you guys. I will be live hopefully the next 4 Sundays for you guys. So we will be live tomorrow going over some of the injuries, kind of where the slate's at leading up to it. So hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one.